What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. Now, I think today what would be good for a lot of people out there who aren't familiar with all the nooks and crannies of the history and where it stands right now, I think we can kind of work our way through that so that everyone comes up to speed, and interspliced within that is going to be your role and your career. Okay. You are someone who has run for public office down in Clearwater, literally on the basis of trying to get rid of the influence of Scientology within that town. So that's certainly something interesting to talk about. But my buddy Danny Jones has a big podcast down there in Madeira Beach. And so he grew up in Clearwater. He was very familiar with Scientology. So he's done some amazing podcasts over the years on Scientology, including with Mike Rinder, Aaron, who's big on YouTube, and some other guys. And so he had been telling me for a long time, I got to do one on this. But I didn't realize that there was literally someone who was down there like on the city council who was speaking up about this. I think that's a very brave thing to do, and we're going to get into why today. But before we go there, can we just start with Ron Hubbard and how this whole thing came together? He's such a fascinating figure. I don't know how there hasn't been like a major movie made about him at this point. I feel like someone would win an Oscar playing that.
There's an incredibly minor movie that was made about him by some of my former friends called The Prophet, which was a thinly veiled biography of Hubbard and the creation of Scientology. It has not really been seen by many people. It premiered in Clearwater, Florida, and ran for like 3 weeks straight in this one theater.
How long ago?
This was like 2001, I believe.
Oh, a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My friend Bob Minton, who is a retired international banker, had spent about $10 million of his own money trying to help people who had been abused by Scientology. And that was one of the things he did, was finance this film that a couple of our friends wrote and produced and directed. And they did a horrible job with it. So that one wasn't seen. But there's another film that is a great movie called The Master. If you haven't seen that,
Wait, Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Joaquin Phoenix?
That's based on Hubbard and Scientology. And there's so much of it that is identifiable. They didn't call it that, of course, and he's not called Hubbard, but there are several practices in it, when they're showing off, doing a locational where, you're trying to, if you're not fixed in this time and space, they'll say, look at that tree. Thank you. Look at that wall. Thank you. So there's things like that in the film that very closely mirror that.
I saw that like right when it came out.
Yeah.
That was like over a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, but that's the the awful and wonderful versions of the story.
Gotcha. So I'm trying to remember though, was Philip Seymour Hoffman supposed to be Hubbard?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He was good to play Hubbard.
Oh, he was perfect for it.
Because like I see this guy talk and I just see like Christian Bale, maybe Leo with some more weight. Well, both of them more weight. Or who's the Daniel Day-Lewis playing it. They could play the shit out of that guy because he's so fascinating. So he was basically a shitty science fiction writer.
Well, I mean, he was a very prolific science fiction writer. He wrote for pulp magazines back in the 30s and 40s. And these were cheap digest magazines that had stories of adventure, westerns, sci-fi, detectives. He wrote them all, but he's primarily known for his science fiction work. But he would crank out these stories at a penny a word.
Right.
And was one of the most prolific writers around. Not one of the best, but he was, selling these selling these stories constantly. And there are some times where he would have almost every story in a particular issue was his, but he would write them under different names. So there'd be pseudonyms for stories that are set in the Wild West, or he actually did French Legionnaire stories and all sorts of anything he could crank out, he would get paid for. But he did not get rich from that. At a penny a word, it's hard to make a living. And
he wrote a lot, though.
He wrote a lot, but still. Yeah. But that explains why Hubbard is so verbose as well. If you read any Scientology stuff, it is so overwritten because that's the style he's used to. You know, you throw out a lot of words there, and maybe some of them make sense, right. But you just bury whatever you have in this language.
Do we know much about like his childhood and how like he even got to this? Like,
well, my God, he was the youngest Boy Scout ever.
He was?
Well, that's what he says.
Oh, okay.
He was a friend of some Indian tribe. I made him an honorary Indian or something. I don't know. But there's this fanciful history that he came up with. He's just a kid with a wonderful flight of fancy, and was able to BS with the best of them. A terribly flawed individual. But he was a prolific writer, but not making money. He served in World War II. He actually got command of a ship for a couple of months before he was yanked off of that.
They gave that guy command of a ship?
They did.
I guess there were no psychiatric evaluations back then.
No, and clearly he was nuts, and they noticed that he was nuts, and they said, you've been shelling this supposed Japanese submarine for 2 days now. You're wasting all of our ammunition on this. It's costing us a fortune. And it turned out to just be some magnetic ore in the water. It was no ship at all, but he was convinced he's saving the U.S. from this Jap attack. So he was canned from that. And when he got out of service in World War II, he found a place to stay in South Pasadena. There was this colorful fella, who had a mansion. And he was renting out rooms to bohemian characters. Like he was looking for artists, writers, anybody who was like offbeat, that they could come and rent a room in his mansion. And Hubbard thought, well, this will be a wonderful thing to do. I'm not going to go back to my wife in the Midwest. I'm going to stay here in this mansion for a while. And this guy who owned this mansion was Jack Parsons, and he was a JPL original rocket scientist. He was a fellow who had, a lot of stuff going for him. One thing he had going for him was that he was a Satanist.
He worshiped the devil.
Yeah, he was a follower of Anton LaVey, I think. But he was actually doing these satanic rituals.
That's nice.
That Hubbard joined in on. And they were doing these black magic rituals with Jack Parsons' girlfriend. They would both be having sex with her as they were
front and back, or
that I don't know, sir. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I just know that they're getting it on with her.
That,
Yeah, they're doing their little chants, and they're trying to create the moon child.
If you got a video of that, we'll take it.
Well, thankfully I don't. But they were trying to create the spawn of Satan, essentially.
Okay.
And Jack Parsons wrote to Anton LaVey, I think that's the right person I'm thinking of, and said, "Hey, we're working on creating a moonchild." And this guy went, "Oh God, these idiots."
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
So Hubbard actually spent a few years there, and then made off with Jack Parsons' girlfriend and his money. He told Parsons, "Hey, listen, I'm going to go to the East Coast, and we'll buy some ships, and we'll sail them back here, and we'll sell them for a profit. It'll be wonderful. I'm taking your girlfriend with me. And so he got the money, got there, and, they never brought the ships back, at least.
Or the girl.
Yeah. At least not at first. This is a type of wonderful, reputable fella that Hubbard is. And that's one of the most fascinating aspects of his life, and the most unorthodox, the most unbelievable aspects of it. So I usually don't even talk about it because people think, oh, come on, you're going overboard now. But Scientology had to admit that this happened. And their cover story when this was uncovered, I think in the 60s.
Oh, a while ago.
Yeah, they said, Hubbard was sent in by the CIA to break up this black magic cult. Oh, yeah, that's what happened. Right.
Yeah.
Heroic Hubbard.
Bustamante about that one.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.